This is my 260 horsepower Harley Davidson Road King Special, and to be honest, it was pretty easy to get that much power out of this bike. In this video, I'm gonna tell you the secret of how I did it, and then we're gonna take it for a test drive. Cue the intro. So this bike started its life as a 2021 Road King Special, and I'm a huge fan of Road Kings. This is the third one I've had, second turbocharged one I've had. And what I love about Road Kings, it's a timeless design that's not gonna be scarred by screens and visible technology. And if you don't believe me on that one, go look at a 30-year-old BMW with its car phone and little tiny navigation screen that's this big. The simpler they are, the better they're gonna age. So because everything is more fun when it makes more power, I decided to go on a journey to see if I can get this bike, which started life as like 86 horsepower. I decided to see if I can get a legitimate 200 horsepower to the wheels. And I was told that the way the M8 motors work is the horsepower and torque numbers are pretty much the same, that's impressive. I mean, there's a lot of sport bikes out there getting close to 200 or more than 200 horsepower, but they're nowhere close to that much torque. But when I started telling people that I was gonna do this, I had a lot of naysayers. One, Harley shouldn't be that fast. One, Harleys will never be that fast. You can't make that much power out of a Harley Davidson without making it completely unrideable. So I wanted to see if I could do it. And the first step I did, this didn't have to be the first step, this could have been closer to the last step, but the first step I did was a belt to chain conversion. I think I used a zippers kit. The belts can actually hold up for a long time, they can hold up for a lot of miles, but when it comes to big power, you want to go with a chain. The second thing I did, then I took out that 114 motor, which is a great motor, but I dropped in a crate 131 engine, which at the time was the biggest, baddest crate motor Harley Davidson ever produced. A couple months ago, they released that they're making a 135 engine, which maybe I got to get that. But the 131 made big power, and the cool thing about it was, is when you order the 131, you actually get the full factory warranty with it. When you order it, they ask you for your VIN number, and they stamp it with the VIN number. So that makes this a matching numbers 131 motorcycle, where I actually have two matching numbers engines for it. I got the 14 sitting on a shelf, and then I got this one. I like that. I feel like in 50 years from now, when this thing's found in a garage, they're gonna wipe the dust off and be like, oh, this is a 131, and find out that it's matching numbers. If we learn anything from muscle cars, matching numbers is what you want. Now, when I threw the 131 in there, I also did the other basic mods of a Screaming Eagle exhaust and also a Screaming Eagle intake. And to be honest with you, it would have been pretty easy just to stop there. For most people, stock is all you need. Just doing those modifications and then a tune, that got me up to about 140 horsepower, which is a decent amount of power. It's almost a 50% horsepower gain from where this thing started from stock. The next modification we did was a high volume oil pump, and that was from Harley Davidson, and also a cam from Ward Cams. When we did those modifications, we put it back on the dyno, it only gave us about 20 more horsepower. Now the oil pump is not really a horsepower gainer, but it's more just a supporting. You need that extra oil to keep the longevity of the engine going. But we did have higher expectations for the power we were going to get from that cam. We were specifically told to use that cam because it was a turbocharged vehicle, and we were hoping that we would see the big gain in horsepower once we put the turbo on. I'm not sure if it was this time or if it was before this, but somewhere around this time is when we put the ThunderMax tuner on there, because at a certain point you have to start changing things, and I think there's only so much programmability that you can get out of the Harley Davidson ECU. If you're wondering why we went with ThunderMax, it was pretty simple. ThunderMax is the only tuner that's actually set up in the program for a turbocharge or supercharge application. None of the other ones are set up for that, so you're kind of limited, but we've had great luck with ThunderMax. And then the big day came, and we got in our big, giant turbo kit. And there's a lot of reasons that people might have to throw a turbo on their motorcycle, and I can guarantee you, I can assure you that every single reason you might come up with is a valid reason. It looks cool, yes, great reason. It sounds good, it sounds amazing, great reason. It's a great way to get big horsepower, absolutely. And what you might not know is, you don't need to do all the mods that we do to throw a turbocharge. And we use a Trask turbocharge kit. They're kind of the only people worth talking about in the Harley Davidson turbocharge industry. I could have very easily thrown this turbo kit right on the stock bike, on the stock 114, and made a big amount of power, and it would have been fun. It would look just as cool as this. I probably would have been pretty happy. And that's exactly what I did with my last Road King. I had a 2008 CVO Road King that had 99,000 miles on it. I threw a Trask turbo on it, bam, bumped up the power a bunch. It looked good, it sounded good, and it rode good. So for most people, if you just wanted to bolt on a turbo and get big looks and big power, I think that's a really great option to make that kind of power. So after we threw on the turbo kit, we threw it on the dyno. We want to see what kind of numbers it makes. And you also notice there's a trend that pretty much every time we did a modification, we threw it back on the dyno. That's pretty important. Dyno tuning your motorcycle or your car or anything is pretty important because you want to make sure that you're hitting your AFR, which is your air-fuel ratio. So those numbers have to be right for the bike to continue running safe. And they're going to check all the other systems. So one, you're making sure that your modification is not hurting the bike, or it's tuned in a way that's going to hurt the bike or hurt the longevity of it, or just as important, that you're not robbing power. So a lot of times they can tune that thing, spend some time, and it takes longer than what you would think it would be, but they can tune it, spend some time, and start tweaking out that power and really smoothing out those dyno graphs. And so once we put the turbo on and put on the dyno, we hit I think 186 horsepower, and somewhat similar when it comes to torque. I was kind of bummed out. I was hoping for a little bit more power out of that, although that's pretty normal. I've seen other guys online with very similar setups, and they're pushing just around just under 190 horsepower, but we didn't stop there. I've got a dyno guy, his name's Brandon. He's up at Appalachian Harley Davidson. He's a wizard. He spent, I think, 2 days tuning this thing. He calls me up a couple days later and he gets us out. He takes us from like 186 to 232 horsepower, which is nuts. But I think he did tell us that at those numbers, that's more like track conditions. Everything's got to be perfect. On pump gas, we needed to bring it down. And I think pump gas was going to be running somewhere around just around 210 horsepower and like 208 foot-pounds of torque, something around there, which is still pretty impressive. But the way this bike is sitting right now, this is on C18 race gas. And that was dynoed and tuned for it at 260 horsepower. But before we get to the test drive, I know you guys are wondering, you're like, yo, Sean, how do you keep your bike so clean and so free of pollen and dust? Because I know you ride it so much. In reality, the bike doesn't get ridden as much as I'd like it to. But I use my M1 Moto Spray. I wipe the thing down. I spray it. You can spray it on any surface. You can spray it on the chrome. You can spray it on the black chrome, the exhaust. You can spray it on just pretty much any surface except for the tires and just wipe it off, and it looks amazing. That is available on our website, bikesandbeardsgear.com. Also, it's available on Amazon. I know a lot of you guys like shopping on Amazon. Now, I know what you're thinking, Sean. You're thinking, one, what's next? Two, what's with these little Monster energy drink holders? We had some Öhlins rear shocks in here. We just took them out and put the factory ones back on there and sent them back to Öhlins, and they're gonna revalve them for us. They didn't know what we were really going for with this bike when they sent them to us, and now they're gonna revalve them and they're gonna be perfect for us. Now also, we teamed up with Öhlins and Big Bear to do the front suspension for us. And we've got the coolest looking front suspension. It's inverted forks. They just showed up. I can't wait to put them on. So that's going to be the next thing that we're going to do with this. The plan is I'm going to take it to the track. We'll throw I don't know, a Shinko or throw more of a race tire back there. And I'm hoping to see if I can break the 10 seconds in the quarter mile. It's got the power to do it. Whether I've got the ability to do it, that's the big question. I'm going to get a back rest because I'm an old man now. One, to help keep me in there for it's pulling the G's, but two, I like the way that feels when I'm cruising on a big trip. So the next question is, how does it ride? Is it still streetable? Because a lot of times when you push out this kind of power, you lose all functionality. It feels awful to drive. All it's good for is really racing. Let's see how this thing actually runs, but I know you guys want to hear it, so let's fire it up. That's got a good sound to it. All right, guys, before we ride, let's do the words of wisdom. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Put on my gloves. Let's fire this beast up. I'm gonna turn off traction control. Well, let me leave it on and see what happens. The first thing I noticed, you guys don't notice this because it looks like it's pretty smooth, but I did lose a little bit of that slow maneuver drivability. There's a little bit, like you can see the throttle. I got to be really touchy on it. And if I'm doing really slow maneuvers, where normally I could just kind of throttle through it like slowly, I kind of clutch it if I'm going really slow. So I did kind of lose that. I'm hoping maybe we can tune that back in, and so it can be nice and sensitive. But you know, you're gonna get some good with the bad. You get an extra 150 horsepower. You're gonna lose something, but I would still consider this extremely streetable. It's just if I was picking a bike to do the rodeo in, I'd probably pick another bike. Now this is the first time that I've ever ridden this bike with the C18. So this is the first time I've ridden it with the full 260 horsepower. Last time we did pools and we were running it against a Hayabusa and stuff, that was only at like 208. So we bumped it up considerably. And another really interesting fact is that this is still running the stock clutch. Now we did, the turbo kit does come with injectors and also, you know, upgraded clutch springs, heavier clutch springs, but it's kind of amazing that this is still running the stock clutch. I know we were modifying some old 2014 bikes with the 103 in it, and the stock clutch could barely do over 150 horsepower. But even though we stepped up and we got heavier clutch springs, I don't feel it. Like I don't feel it in my hand. I don't feel it. It's still a really light clutch, you know, in terms of my fingers. I'm gonna get it. I'm in third gear. I'm gonna get some. Holy cow! Wow. That is fun. That was maybe 75% throttle, and that's all I need to go to warp speed. Wow. Oh man, this is such a fun bike. Such a fun bike to ride. And it's crazy how, if you talk to guys who were modding bikes 10 years ago, and they were doing tire shredder stage 12 kits or whatever, they would tell you, they're like, don't do it. Don't mod your bike up don't mod your street bike up that much, because it's not fun to ride anymore. It's a track bike. It's a straight line drag strip bike, and the clutch was so heavy and the thing was so jerky. It was just made for one thing, and that was going in a straight line. And you know, with modern technology and this turbo kit, and you know, the engines that Harley's building these days, 260 horsepower, and you can daily this. I plan on doing some road trips with this bike, and when that kid comes by, that arrogant kid in his 600 Super Sport, maybe even the leader, shoot, I mean, we were pulling on Hayabusas. You know, when someone comes up to you and they're, oh, look at this old guy, look at this old man with his Harley Davidson, you know, you can get it. Now, normally I would be attempting to do a 0 to 60. I'm not seeing that being a. I'm not going to do that. I need a little more time on this bike before I don't want to give this thing a bad 0 to 60 number. But let's go on the highway and see how this thing does getting up to highway speeds. All right, so all these cars are passing me. I don't want them to pass me. So this bike is a blast. It's a ton of fun to drive. It's still straightable. It pulls very hard. I think what happened back there is, I think traction, it's as crazy to say, but at doing highway speeds on a pool, traction kicked in, and that's why it kind of gave me that stutter. This is such a fun bike to ride. If you guys get a chance to, throw a 131, throw a blower on it, and spend some money getting it tuned, you're gonna have a blast. And this will probably take, you're gonna be hard pressed to find a faster bike out there. Maybe I should compare this to a Boss Hoss, because I think I got him. Alright guys, that wraps it up. I do plan on taking this thing to the track on a Bikes and Beards video. My goal is I want to run 9s. I want to surpass 10s. I think it can do it. And we'll see you guys next time. And we'll keep you guys updated with the modifications we do. The next thing is suspension. We really need to upgrade that suspension, and almost all the parts are in, so that should be happening pretty soon. We'll see you guys next time. Remember, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going.